Welcome back, everybody, and welcome back again to those of you online, and a very warm welcome if you are just joining us for our final segment of today's conference. And this session that we're going to pass on to is called What Works? Lessons and Policy Recommendations from EU Projects. So, as we know, MOBI-TWIN is not alone, so we're going to have brought together in this session the three complementary Horizon Europe projects, Premium EU, RMAP and SkillsPulse. And I'm giving over the reins to the very able Anastasia Panori, who will ask them to compare notes and share lessons and draw out the similarities and the differences between them. So, Anastasia, over to you to introduce your speakers.
Thank you very much. It's hard to be the moderator, but okay, I'll try to do my best. So yes, MOBI-TWIN is not alone. So today we have the pleasure to have here with us three other projects. We have one sister project, Premium EU, and two other projects that are very relevant. They were not funded under the same topic, but their premises and their focus is very close to what MOBI-TWIN has been doing during the last 3 years. So first of all, I will give the floor to Peter to present their findings for Premium EU. Peter, the floor is yours.
Then I'll use this microphone. So thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Peter Meister-Broekema, as introduced by Anastasia. I'm working at Hans University of Applied Sciences, also in Groningen, the Netherlands. So I have a few colleagues from another university here as well, Darius Dibus and some of his PhD students. So I now work on the impact of demographic changes and broad prosperity. And I was also one of the founding members of the Premium EU project. So that's been like 4 or 5 years ago when we started working on it. And what I wanted to do today is to briefly, because I only have like 5 minutes, so that's really short. That's the downside of being 7. Okay, 7 minutes, that's a little bit better. That's the downside of presenting a project, you don't have a lot of time. So I just want to show you who we are, what we did briefly. I will introduce the policy dashboard. I think some of you already seen it. And I will tell a little bit about the findings we found, basically. So, who were we? Because we finished 8 weeks ago already at the other side of the street at the Committee of the Regions. And we were a project, 10 consortium partners. You can find them here on a little map, and you can also see their logos. 2 sister projects, MOBI-TWIN and also Replace. And I think what was really interesting and really nice is that we had a really interesting and interdisciplinary group, so demographers, political scientists, programmers, communications, and I think it's the case with a lot of Horizon projects, of course, but that really made it interesting and I think also possible to do the things we did. And yeah, just like the other 2 sister projects, we focused on regional development, the relationship between regional development and migration. And even when starting with this project, we always had questions like this in mind. If Polish farmers migrate to Sweden, what happens to the farms they leave behind? And it was exactly this question and numerous other questions which were roughly the same that made us realize that we needed to focus on 4 underlying questions first. So the who. So who is migrating? Who are those migrants? And we decided not to go for a specific region, but we decided to go for every type of migrant in Europe. So we didn't focus on a specific group, but we said, okay, let's do everything from students to labor migration, outside, inside. So we had a lot of work to do there as well. The same with the regions. So what happens if somebody goes from Poland to Sweden? We thought, well, let's focus on all the regions, not 3 level, we just do it. So there was also quite a lot of work. And we also included Turkey as well, and we did some case studies on Ukraine. So there was a lot of data. And the other thing we really wanted to look at is the what. So what happens? So what is the impact if somebody leaves one region, and what is the impact on the receiving region as well? And to do this, we developed a whole set of indicators. So how did we do this? So really briefly, we looked at the relation, as I said, between regional development and migration. And we already know, and this has been said before, and I think Maria also touched upon it, that migration is already reshaping regional Europe. I think I think Vicente said it, there are not only winners, some of the regions will lose. I think after this presentation I will say a few words about this as well. But migration is reshaping Europe, and it's not only about the numbers. So it's really nice to have models and to see how many people end up where and how many regions will actually decline. I don't know if there were some people during the final meeting of the Premium EU project, but I showed a picture there, I showed a map. And without migration, I think in 2100, I think 99% of all the regions will decline without external migration. And I think we didn't touch upon that today that much, but I think I will leave it to the end to say a few words about that as well. So what we did to understand the who, the what, the why, and the where, we used different approaches. And I think it's been said as well by Ola. I think he also used Twitter data, X data. We also used social media data to better be able to see where people were coming from and where they were going to. So we used LinkedIn data and we also used Facebook data. So we could actually see when people from Poland were logging into their account in the Netherlands. And we used that to improve the forecast, basically. What we also did is we came up with a whole set of new indicators, and I think we've been talking about this all day. It's not only about GDP, it's about broad prosperity, about broader types of regional development. So we came up with a lot of indicators analyzing how regions are doing and what we could do to improve. And what we also did is come up with a lot of policies. And one also really important, what we also did is understanding the why a little bit better. So we had interviews with a lot of migrants and also key stakeholders in numerous countries. I think we did it in 6 or 8 countries. So we have a lot of quotes, a lot of analysis, also from a micro perspective. What we also did, and I think this could also be a way in, we talked about this morning, how can we share our findings? So what we also invested duty in is come up with a community of policymakers. So we formed a Resilient Regions expert group, so more than 135 regional policy makers, and we co-created the main deliverable of our project together with them. That main deliverable is the Resilient Regions framework. And what we put in there was, the new forecast I was just talking about. We also included loads and loads of policies. So I was in charge of that, and we developed an automatic web scraper, scraping all the municipal websites of Europe, basically, then downloading the policies, analyzing them, and then attributing them to similar regions. And I will just show you how it will look a little bit later on. And we also came up with a database of real quotes from migrants, just to show what people encounter if they move, what kind of policies can be used to attract them, etc., etc. So, main deliverable, and I prepared a short video clip because I thought if I do this live it will always go wrong. So this is the policy dashboard. I will share a QR code at the end so you can have a look at it. So you can just pick your region, then you wait till the map is loading. There it is. You can go to a country, or you can click on the map, select the Croatia here with a region. Then you can go downstairs, you can go up, you can go to the regional development to see how you score. So on social, economic and living environment dimensions and how it's been evolving over time. And what is really interesting is that you can also find comparable regions. So you can see your profile leading or not leading, and then you can find similar regions that you can contact and that have probably similar challenges as you. And what is also interesting, probably similar policy solutions as well. So, for example, you chose a region, you click on migration and community engagement policies, a whole list from other regions pop up. You can click on them, you can see what they're about, and you can always go to the original document. Yeah, well, this one is in Polish, but in that case, you could at least use those policies as some kind of inspiration for your own region. So that's the policy dashboard. Thank you. I hope this was 7 minutes and you can QR code this and have a look. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Peter. It was very brief, on time.
My best.
As a next step, our next speaker is Nikos Zaharis. He's also an advisory board member of MOBI-TWIN project, and today he will present us This project is still ongoing, so he will present on some initial findings from their project, RMAP.
Thank you very much, Anastasia, and thank you all in the MOBI-TWIN consortium for inviting me. And this has been a very, very interesting day, very nice discussions, a lot of things that are really very relevant to what we do also. So, as Anastasia said, I'm Nikos Zaharis. I'm from the Southeast European Research Center, which is a research center of the University of York Europe campus in Thessaloniki, Greece. And I'm representing here RMAP, mapping, understanding, assessing, and predicting the effects of remote working arrangements in urban and rural areas. This is a project that is not a sibling project to MOBI-TWIN, but it's very, very relevant. It's being led by Aristotle University in Thessaloniki. Because, I mean, remote work and mobility go hand by hand. A lot of remote workers are mobile workers and vice versa, and sometimes it's difficult to say what is remote working and what is mobility. So if you are working remotely for a German company in Italy, for example, are you a mobile worker or are you a remote worker? So it is really very, very relevant. And let's say the key issues that we have studied and identified up till now is the gap between urban and rural, and the hope, let's say, that remote work could be a factor that can enable us to bridge this gap, which we don't see up till now, to be completely honest and open with all the data that we have. And it's still something that remains to be seen. And of course, I think from the discussion also today, we understand why, we understand what needs to be done. Also, very big differences between the primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. Shifting housing demands, so very, to put it very plainly, smaller offices, bigger houses. This is a trend that we see, and it's going to be bigger as more and more people work remotely. The affordability challenges that we talked a lot today about this, and huge inequalities across sectors, territories, and income groups. We have done a lot of research, a big survey of 20,000 people, lots of interviews in many countries of quadruple helix stakeholders, focus groups, and 5 pilot studies in 5 areas, and come up with a typology of remote working arrangements and its impact in 6 clusters. I'm not going to go into details now, so we don't lose a lot of time, but there is a very big and very detailed report online on our website if you are interested to see the clusters and how we have characterized each one of the regions in NUTS 2 level. Still, I think, as I discussed with some of you, I think in the breaks, it's useful, but not as useful as if we go further. We need to go in NUTS 3 and in more granular levels, because, I mean, for example, my region, the region of Central Macedonia, the real problem is between the capital, Thessaloniki, and the rest of the region, and Thessaloniki is sucking everything in, so that it's not a regional issue, it's much more granular. Anyway, so we have identified 7 strategic pillars that policy needs to address related to remote working arrangements, governance and legal frameworks. It's a new thing, it's a post-COVID thing, so most of the legal frameworks are not in place yet, either at a local level or a national level, and maybe even EU level. Digital infrastructure, of course, especially if we're talking about rural areas. Special planning and housing, this is a result of what I said before, of needing more space in the houses, less space in offices, and changing zoning and land use and so on. Mobility and transportation, this changes also a lot. So there will be maybe even more demand for mobility and transportation, but different. Not everybody going to the center of the city, for example, but more dispersed. Labor market and skills, which is very important. The effects of the labor market and skilling and reskilling people. Work-life balance and mental health. For example, the right to disconnect and the feeling that a lot of remote workers have that they cannot disconnect from their work if they are working remotely. And issues related to gender equality and inclusion, both on a positive and a negative aspects in this sense. So we have a preliminary set of policy recommendations which is going to evolve until the end of the project, and it's looking in four aspects: EU, national, regional, and local. So for the EU, we have proposals on integrating remote work in the cohesion, labour and digital agenda, to fund infrastructure and inclusion instruments, especially in rural areas, and to encourage common governance principles. At the national level, to define legal and labour market frameworks. This is very important because in most of the countries they are still in infancy. Coordinate tax, social and security implications. I think this is an important aspect that has to do a lot with mobility also, and it's something that I didn't hear a lot about today, but I think it's a really big problem because we have people who are mobile or remote working in 3 or 4, 5 different countries, and we know from experience that how difficult it is to coordinate tax and social security issues. Public transportation, as I mentioned before, and also digital investment at the regional and metropolitan level, aligned with spatial planning and economic development, coordinate transport, housing and labour responses, design place-based intervention by regional profile, and going even further to local zoning and land use issues, implementing inclusive employer remote work policies in cooperation with employer organizations at the local level, and monitoring neighborhood level impacts. And we have done a little bit of an exercise of how these policies can be implemented in short-term, medium-term, and long-term frameworks. The medium-term, I think, is the most important, and I have highlighted here digital infrastructure, workforce reskilling, but also all the rest of the interventions. I'm just not going to read all this. The project, as Anastasia said, is ongoing. Here are the partners, and you can go to our website and see more details. And happy to answer questions. Hope I didn't did more than 7 minutes.
You did great. Okay. Thank you very much for introducing the RMAP project. And finally, the last project that is very also relevant to the MOBI-TWIN project, and we have developed synergies during the last 3 years, is the SkillsPulse project, which focuses on skills intelligence. And I would like Liga to make a short introduction about the project.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I have a challenge and advantage to be among the last speakers in the final panel. I'll try to do my best. As also our project is still ongoing, so we have more than 1 year ahead of us. So I'm not sure that I will be providing really answers, definitive answers to what works, but I'll try to show what we are doing in our project. And actually, the previous 2 presentations already made a link also to the importance of skills topic. So when we talk about the mobility, as it was said by Premium EU project, that the regional imbalances is also very much shaped by that who is moving, not that how many are moving. And also, as the RMAP project showed, that important policy area to address is linked to labor market and skills development areas. I'm also myself a bit example of mobility, as I work in Brussels for Italian company, but I live in France and I'm coming from Latvia. So there are a lot of questions linked also to mobility, but I can somehow project on me personally. So what's clearly that also skills-related topic, so skills is also contributes to shaping mobility patterns. And what we are trying to do in the project to clarify, starting from conceptual clarification, what is skill shortages, looking to more empirical measures, how to measure skill shortages across Europe. Also, of course, in the context of digital and structural changes. But however, our project is not really focusing on regional aspects, but we are unavoidably also addressing that as well. What we are trying to do in our project is not only measuring current skills shortages, but also to look into future, so anticipating what might be future imbalances in future brought by skills. And indeed, it's clear that labor markets are changing. Skill requirements are evolving faster than education systems, and also the regions are affected rather unevenly. So our work is structured along 5 key objectives. So starting from this more conceptual framework, but we are also will be using big data analysis to anticipate the future skill needs. So we are bringing the element of looking at emerging technologies and anticipating the future skill needs, and also in that relation future skill shortages. We are bringing in also institutional responses, but also employers' perspectives, how they're what are the skills deficiencies and what strategies they're putting in place to mitigate their impacts. And one of the important results, what we will be presenting later this year, is the composite indicator to measure skill shortages. And here we are focusing more on skill shortage element, not labor shortages. So that's important thing to distinguish. That we try to have it. Presented and discussed a lot with stakeholders, so it can be really the measure which would be used by policymakers across Europe. And this would be presented in the form of the IT tool. Not only the index will be available there, but also contextual information which would help to understand the skills shortages across Europe. And now I'll just briefly to present how we approach this skills shortage challenge, starting with improving how we identify skill shortages across Europe. And what we realize still, that even if we a lot discuss about skill shortages, and that's not a new phenomenon, but there is still no standard way to define or measure them across Europe. And it makes also this comparison more difficult, and also in a way, policy responses are also not that clear always. So what we developed as a first step of our research, but as I said, the composite indicators currently is still under development, but we have developed the first, let's say, pillar of the approach, which is quite a new approach to combine 2 perspectives. One is more subjective view from employee surveys, capturing how workers are experiencing skill gaps, and another is more objective measure, looking at online job advertisements and reflecting real-time employer demand. So together these provide more complete picture where and why shortages occur. And as I said, we are also very much trying to distinguish and be clear as possible what's the difference between labor shortages when we don't have, let's say, enough applicants, and skill shortages when there is potential applicants, but they don't have required competences, and this is really important element to have clarity among stakeholders with whom we are talking about. Also, that not always the problem is skill shortage, but often we are talking about labor shortages, and we used. To operationalize this approach, this methodological approach, so we used analysis of the European Skills and Jobs Survey, which is the SEDEFOP's survey, and it allows us to identify jobs workers perceive as difficult to replace, and job advertisement data, and we used let's say for the moment the best quality data which is considered available and covering all European countries. We acquired data set produced by Lightcast, so to have as complete data set as possible. And the novelty of this approach is really in benchmarking 2 perspectives, so aligning perceived workplace realities with real-time labor market signals. And actually what we discovered in this first phase of the research that we can estimate around 3.5 of jobs in the EU that are risk of skill shortages. So we are not talking about that high percentage when we talk about skill shortages, but that's, as I said, it's one of the first part of the research implemented so far. And also there is, of course, variation among the occupations. So it's more, the skill shortage is higher among more senior staff members, CEOs, senior officials. There's also higher rates when we talk about science, engineering, and ICT professionals, also managerial roles. But elementary and service occupations actually show quite a low skill shortage rate, staying around 1%. So while the share is relatively small, so we see that it's more concentrated in more higher, let's say, more knowledge intense occupations, which I think also it's more central to when we talk about digital and green transition as well. And then there is another part which is more qualitative research part, when we were looking about a bit more on the types of skills when we had additional interviews with different type of stakeholders. We had workshops with stakeholders, and of course the focus was a bit, we managed to zoom in more in 6 countries who are partners in our project, and the UK also we have partner from the UK as well. And what we identified that there are, of course, persistent shortages, technical, digital, STEM skills around sectors. There's increasing importance of adaptability and transversal skills. There is strong impact of demographic change, especially aging population clearly has a change. And as I said, there is also this mismatch between education and labor market needs. These factors also probably can be related to migration and mobility decisions, what we don't specifically address in our project, but still there is a high link. And then we looked more in detail on skill needs, emerging skill needs, what we found across a very broad set of open job vacancy data. We looked at the new skills which were not present before but now are appearing, and emerging skills which were existing before but now in growing in demand. And it also helped us to capture the direction of labor market transformation in Europe. So what we found when we were looking about on these new and emerging skills, and we did analysis for all EU 27 countries plus UK. Of course, digital transformation is among the main group. Skills in AI, automation, content creation, etc. So it's spreading all across all sectors. Then we saw the hybridization of roles, that jobs increasingly combine technical, analytical, social skills, raise in soft skills, especially when we talk about automation. Then there is increasing importance also of social skills, soft skills, and growth of green and care-related skills, and also that there's change also in managerial profiles as well. So we see that also mobility is rather becoming skills selective. We will look a bit more also regional perspective in the future parts of the study. And if you're interested to have more insights on the methodology behind that, and already the research outputs we produced, here's the website for that. And we have quite big ambition regarding the composite indicator and the tool which will have the prototype available autumn this year. So I invite you to follow the project and further development. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Liga. And after these 3 short presentations, I would like to ask you just to tell me one way in which your project relates to the twin transition, which was the main focus of MOBI-TWIN. How do you, because, okay, with Premium we're sister projects, but the other 2 projects are synergy projects. So as a final question, I would like to ask you to tell me under 60 seconds, as Jennifer said, what is the aspect of your project that relates to twin transition and regional development? Peter.
Okay, clock is ticking. Now, I think, so what I wrote down is that it's really complementary to each other. I think you focused really on the twin transition and also the combination between changing mobility and vice versa. And what we did is looking more at policy mixes. So I didn't talk a lot about it, but we really look at policy mixes as a total. So how could you use this to stimulate new regions? And I think this is really important if you combine the both. So if you really have a specific region and you really invest in quality of place, for example, by green and also digital transitions or digital and green investments, then you make it much more, a region much more likable to live there. And I think using maybe, for example, the things we can come up with, the regional development typologies, you could actually use that policy mix in combination with the green and digital investments to come up with new sets of policy mixes and also make this region much more resilient. Something like that.
Thank you very much, Peter. And then Nikos, about the ARMOD project.
Yes. As I said, the projects are really looking into two phenomena that are really very much related. I've been tempted to say a lot about digital infrastructure, about transportation infrastructure, planning, and so on and so on. But I would say the most important common theme that we have is that we insist, I think, both projects on agency and capacity building at the local and regional level. And I think that we can propose either on digital infrastructure, transportation, on governance settings, or anything can work if it doesn't devolve at the local and regional level. And we need to bring agency and we need to bring capacity at the local and regional level. So that's my...
Thank you very much. And Liga?
Yeah, well, I already in my speech a bit referred to digital green transition that way, but I think it's really important also to recognize that regions, they do have their own challenges. So even if we say that some what policymakers at national level could do, etc., still there is a regional dimension, even in small countries like Estonia, for example. We have also Estonian partner, but we see that also for smaller countries, you can't generalize some conclusions. There are still regional specifics. What we also see that, of course, highly skilled workers are more flexible to move. So also there is an impact on mobility. And what is like one of the findings when we did analysis of open job vacancy data also that what was in the beginning surprising, but then there was explanation that, for example, like in Croatia, but it's not the only country where there is a sort of new appearing skill requirement appears the knowledge of the language, the Croatian language, for example. But it's because it's linked with migration from other countries. When employers put in the job vacancies, also the knowledge of the national language, which was not maybe evident in the job advertisements before. But yeah, I think. Also, skills without opportunities will lead to migration plan. So that's also that we can't talk about skills policies in isolation from other policies as well.
So thank you very much, all of you, for being here and for providing us with additional information, additional ways to think about migration and skills. And this was also a way to discuss and see how different projects, even funded under different topics, may act very complementary to each other. So thank you very much. We can and I give the floor back to Jennifer.
And thank you very much, Anastasia, for taking the pressure off me at this late stage of the day and really guiding it through. You're much more knowledgeable about these things than me. So we're going to move to our closing keynote. It's spatial mobility and the future of cohesion policy. How should Europe rethink cohesion policy for a world where people, skills and opportunities are unevenly distributed? So I think at this point, we're coming to the end of our discussions and the end of our conference. It's important to take this step back. We've moved through evidence to policy interpretation, future scenarios, and of course, practical intervention. So now we need someone to draw these strings together for us and look at this synthesis and a way to connect the threads. So our closing keynote, please welcome back. It's Maria Abreu, who is still Professor of Economic Geography at University of Cambridge. And it's a tough act to draw together these strings, but you're going to outline the key challenges. So thank you, Maria.
Yep, thanks very much. I don't have slides. I have sort of been taking notes and trying to bring together all the key lessons of the day. I've divided it into 3 parts. So first I'm going to talk about what I think are the key challenges based on the discussions we've had today, looking more broadly at the cohesion policy and the policy challenges we face. The second sort of part is I want to draw out what I think are the key insights and contributions of the MOBI-TWIN project. And then finally, I want to say a few words on the outlook as I see it, sort of bringing this all together. Okay, so on the key challenges, and this is probably my own sort of biases and interpretations on what I think they are, but across EU regional policy, the first one, I've mentioned it earlier, but I feel that we can't come up with solutions in the middle of a situation where we have growing dissatisfaction in left-behind regions. And so I feel that we need to address that. So that is the growing dissatisfaction in left-behind regions, which then leads to political instability, and that in turn leads to further decline. The second key challenge, I think, from a policy point of view, is the green transition, which is a hard sell in regions that are going to be negatively affected but not necessarily benefit from a sort of longer-term reduction or improvement or addressing of climate change impacts. And so if residents in these regions perceive there are no benefits, how can we sell them this green transition? And then finally, another thing that I feel has come up several times is the sort of population demographic decline, population aging, but in particular the struggle for young workers, for skilled labour, and how immigration fits into this. So those are what I think are the key challenges, broad challenges we have. And then in terms of the MOBI-TWIN project, so I've been on the advisory board for throughout the project, and these are my own views on what I think their key contributions are. Of course, it's a very rich project. The first one is something that I feel isn't talked about enough in policy circles, which is the key importance of the 18 to 40-year-old cohort. So I think the project really drew this out. This is the key cohort both because they're sort of tend to be skilled workers, but they are also the cohort that has children and keeps the place young as well. So the next generation also linked to this cohort. And I think we can only come up with policy decisions and tools if we have appropriate granular data, and I think the contribution of the project is that it has provided us with these tools, the population projections, the sort of very granular estimations, and sort of showing the future trends. The second bit is, I think the project was really innovative in linking the green transition with the digital transition. So this is something, two aspects of policy that are often siloed. I think it's really important to show how they are connected and how they can bring opportunities to left-behind regions that are suffering from out-migration, but also places that are likely to be in many cases adversely affected in some ways by the green transition. So there are lots of policy ideas and examples that were mentioned today, but generally the green transitions, the new initiatives tend to be capital intensive and not necessarily labor intensive. So how can we link this to revitalizing left behind regions? And I think this is perhaps something that can be talked about further. The project has really brought out the importance of sharing prosperity and how we can do that I've written in my own notes, but this is my own bias, universal basic income. It wasn't talked about, but something that I quite like, and I think members of the project are also quite keen on. Anyway, so this is the shared prosperity arising from the twin transition. And the final point I think that has also come out of the project is the importance of policy delivery and co-design in policy making. And I think it was very innovative how the project had a sort of the co-design element to it. And I've said it before, I think several people have mentioned agency. But I think agency felt by local residents is really important as well as agency within local policy making. So those are my key insights from the project, and I think the fact they've provided us with these tools and data sets is really valuable for future work and policy design. And then finally on the outlook, and I try to sort of stay optimistic in a difficult sort of context around the world. I think Europe, of course, has many advantages in terms of there are strong research and educational institutions. There is, I put in brackets, reasonable political stability compared to other regions in the world. There's the common market, there's freedom of movement, and in the UK we feel this loss very keenly, and of course, a really important point coming out of the project. So I think Europe is in many ways in a really good position to deal with these challenges. So my second point on the outlook is that the green transition and the digital transition can't be delivered purely through technocratic means. The narratives and how we involve population in designing and delivering these policies is, I think, really key, and particularly for regions that are left behind and feel very sort of disengaged and dissatisfied. And the final point on the outlook I have, this is one of my favorite topics and maybe a bit controversial. It's on international migration and refugees. So my view is very strongly that in the 21st century, or the mid part of it, will be defined by which countries and regions are able to attract international migrants, because we are in this long-term demographic decline. And so at the moment, of course, the narratives are all about, at least in the UK, in some parts of Europe as well, anti-immigration, and I feel that this is something that perhaps, with the insights of the projects and some of the other projects that have talked about this, somehow we have to identify and explain that international migration is a key part of the puzzle, and not just the migration but also the integration that has been mentioned previously in terms of culture and languages and so on. So I feel in terms of the outlook that this will be a key question that Europe needs to get right in the mid-21st century. So those are my points, very briefly. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Maria. And Giulia, we were there for the opening this morning. You now have the honour of giving the closing remarks, so over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Maria, for the great closing and also for sharing your views on the outlook now moving forward. First of all, I would like to thank all the speakers, the panelists, and you, the participants, for today's discussions. It's been really great to hear different perspectives on the questions that MOBI-TWIN has asked, and some of you have come to me and say, I have many ideas from this event on how to link the work you do with our local reality, so I think that we can say that today this makes it already a success for us. We have heard a lot about the need for interactive and multidimensional approaches to respond to the complexity of regions, and I think this is really where MOBI-TWIN has tried to make a contribution. For us, it was not about giving all the answers, but try to help with understanding what's going on and what this can mean for policy. And we have tried to do that in different ways. Today you have heard a lot about the research we have been doing. And of course there is always more we would have liked to do, but a project has its limits and 3 years go by very quickly. And now we have brought all of this research together into policy briefs, and we really hope that our work can be taken further and used in practice to help regions navigate the green and the digital transitions in a way that, as we said in the beginning, is both effective and fair. But we also heard that in the first panel, the link between research and policy is not always immediate. It's often about timing and sometimes even a bit about luck, as Simone said. But we do hope that today has helped move this discussion forward, even in a small way. So we will continue sharing our results beyond the end of the project, and we hope that the work we developed within MOBI-TWIN will keep feeding the discussions. So I would like to close by warmly thanking all consortium partners for the great collaboration over the past 3 years, our scientific coordinator, Anastasia, who's also the mastermind behind this project, the European Commission for supporting this work, the European Committee, the European Committee of the Regions for hosting us today, Jennifer for guiding us through the day. So yes, thank you all again for being here, and we hope to stay in touch.
Thank you from my side too.